There was plays that to be made, and it just felt like we had a consistent group that wasn't going to shy away from it.
The most important team in everyone's life at the outset is one's family.
When people are willing to give up of themselves and, do more than the norm, I think that allows you to trust on the field a little bit more.
Your last game was the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas.
Yeah.
And is that when you knocked Marcus's teeth out? Or was that the Michigan game?
Wait, I knocked Marcus's teeth out?
Going through the hard times is what builds you.
My dad had a legacy in Pittsburgh, but I wanted to continue to build on mine.
Hey, Jim Tressel here. Welcome, team, to another episode of It's All About the Team. And you talk about having the consummate team guy today who's had an extraordinary career and on and off the field. We're fortunate to have with us today the NFL Man of the Year, the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, Cameron Heyward.
Coach, appreciate you having me on. Excited to be here.
Well, I am too, and you know I had to dig back because I keep everything. Some of it I send to you. I sent you some of your old goal sheets and whatnot, but I dug back into the winner's manual, and I found your senior speech notes.
Oh gosh,
remember that? And
man.
So for the listeners and viewers, I've showed you a lot of winner's manuals. This was the winner's manual from Cam's senior year, so you can see team is above everything. So, Cam, you remember that we had each of our seniors address the team and talk about the wisdom they'd learned, or the ups and downs they'd had, how they could perhaps help the younger people understand what the tradition and the responsibility and all the rest was about. And so we asked you to cover one of the fundamentals of our winner's manual. And the fundamental you selected was gratitude. And the comment I wrote down that you challenged the team was to make sure that they thank their families for getting them to this point. The second thing we asked you guys to do was to pick a 1942 Buckeye who was the first national championship team, remember, at Ohio State?
Yes, sir.
And you picked an All-American from 1942. Any idea who you picked?
Oh, man. Oh.
That was 14 years ago.
I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Okay, that's all right. You picked Chuck Surrey.
Oh.
And Chuck Surrey was All-American in both ways. Back in the day, they played both ways. And he went on, if you remember, to be a war hero. And he was a silver medal winner at the Battle of the Bulge and so forth. And then when he came out of serving our country, he came back to school, majored in art, and he became the father of digital art. And so all of the specialties. So you happened to lecture about Chuck Surrey, and just in passing, within the last 6 or 8 months, Mr. Surrey passed away at age 99.
Wow.
War hero.
Oh.
The other thing we asked each of you seniors to pick was a favorite person you ever had that played your position at Ohio State. Any idea?
Oh, gosh.
I'm testing you, man.
I think I actually do remember this. Big Daddy.
Big Daddy Wilkinson. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Because everybody got a kick out of that one when I said Big Daddy.
That's right. And you talked about the fact that he was one of 11 kids, and his dad passed away, and he was my quote in here is, you said one man could not stop him. He had to be double teamed.
Yes, sir.
And then the fourth one, and the last one that we asked you to share and talk a little bit about was who might be a hero or a winner in your life up to that point. And you know who you picked, your mom and your dad.
Yep.
And so I lead into our discussion that focuses on it's all about the team to really the most important team in everyone's life at the outset is one's family.
Yeah.
And that's why you and Allie are such great parents, because you know how critical that is to your young children, and you know how fortunate you are that your mom and dad, were special. And so tell our viewers, listeners, a little bit about why mom and dad are heroes. Some of the people might know a little bit about your dad, but some of them might not.
Yeah. So as some people might know, my dad played 11 years in the NFL. He had the nickname Ironhead, Craig Ironhead Heyward, but he was more than that. I grew up with, a larger-than-life type of personality as my dad, and him and my mom, man, it didn't matter what event I had going on or what event my brothers had going on, they were always present. And I think watching my parents be present in all of my life, even when it was tough, when my dad got sick from cancer and at first had to quit playing football and they removed the tumor, but then to watch it come back and him still try to be present in my life. And as my dad passed away, my mom even stepped up more and she was even more present. I've always thanked them for providing, guidance and being there for me when I need them most. When I was going through the recruiting process, my mom, she stepped up more than anybody. She was asking coaches, you run a 4-3, a 3-4, how many D tackles you got, how many DNs you got. And I felt her guiding me along that journey because some people don't even have that. They might have two parents, but they're not that involved in the recruiting process. So I was just always, beyond blessed to have two parents that bust their butts for us. And she still does, even I tell her she doesn't have to. And I'm just very thankful for it.
Well, we didn't get a chance to spend time with your dad in the recruiting process. He had already passed. I think when you were junior high?
So he passed before my senior year in high school.
Oh, was it that? Okay, that recent. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so one thing I remember about your mom is that she had very high expectations for your behavior, for your academics, for the way you interacted with people. Mm-hmm. And, as we're talking about how do you build great teams, and we're talking about the family team, it's interesting to hear from a lot of our guests is that family that had high expectations and sometimes had to make the, tough love discussions that hurt them maybe more than when they were delivering them. And that's what I remember about your mom. In fact, when you were a junior at Ohio State, everyone thought you were going out early in the NFL draft and you're going to be top 10 pick and, all that kind of stuff. And I remember when she called me up, she said, I don't care what you're reading or what you're listening to on the internet. My son is staying at Ohio State and get his degree. I don't care what he's thinking. That's what he's going to do. Right?
Yeah, I didn't fight her on that one.
No, right. You probably didn't fight her on much.
No. She's always had the best for me. And, like you mentioned, she was always big on my character first. I think the thing that attracted us to Ohio State in the first place is, we went all these different places. And I had made my mind before I took my visit. I came for an unofficial. It was a 1-versus-2 game, and I know you were busy as ever, so you took time with us. But then my mom left that meeting just feeling like you were going to take care of me. You were going to not just worry about how good of a football player I was, but rather the man I was going to become, and the spiritual leader I was going to become, or the family man. Like, that's what we were always concerned with growing up, and it always, you gave us the tools to succeed, and my mom knew that from the get-go.
Well, it was fun, and I think your mom's parents being in Pittsburgh helped us too, because they could bring you food over in the off season.
Not too far, about 3 hours away. So
that's right. So tell the listeners and viewers. I don't know if it was a student-athlete mixer or something, but you happened to be standing in line, as I remember the folklore, and you met a young lady.
Oh,
Your freshman year.
man. So we were in the dorms before everybody else because we come for summer workouts and you come to train. And we were in these special dorms. I think it was the honors dorms, but it was football and it was volleyball. And of course, if you know my roommates, Nate Oliver, Solomon Thomas, Rocco Bentello, they are very, very outgoing. And I'm very laid back. I don't have to make a big scene to, I just stand back. But they were like, oh, there's girls in the dorms, and they wanted to go meet them. Little did I know I was going to be meeting my wife the first day in the dorms, and
Yep.
we've been together ever since.
Yep. And she was a volleyball player,
Yes.
and you can't have a great team at home unless all the team members are special. So talk a little bit about what Allie brings to the new team,
Oh
Cameron
man.
Heyward family.
Oh, it's been awesome because I've gotten to see her flourish, and find different things she cares about. One, she's a great mom. I will never take that from her. She is an awesome mom. She does amazing with the kids. She's present. She is way more caring than I could ever be. But we have 3 kids at home, 1 boy and 2 girls. And she is going above and beyond for them. And I'm just thankful for that. But I've gotten to see her just flourish outside of just being a mom and a wife, where she's started her own business that's in the process. And, I think sometimes in the family, we can get into the roles of just being husband and wife and mom and dad. But, she's got to live her life, and to see her thriving in a space where she doesn't need my help, she's teaching me. So
Right.
I'm just appreciative that she's finding her own lane, and she's succeeding at that.
Well, we always talk as coaches that our greatest victories are watching our student athletes later in life, and watching you two Buckeyes later in life and the difference you're making. We'll get to that a little bit later in our discussion, but let me tap your thinking cap a little bit. I always like to keep you thinking. So we're talking about how do we build great teams, whether it's athletic teams, businesses, families, nonprofit organizations. You've been around a lot of those.
Yeah.
But let's start with back in high school, Peachtree Ridge High School. Mm-hmm. Were you guys state champs?
Yeah, we were state champs. Yeah.
And so think back, what do you think made that team be able to reach its potential? And because in Georgia, I think there's like 6 rounds or something. Don't you play forever for the championship?
It felt like it.
Yeah, I think they have like 5 or 6 rounds to win the thing.
Yeah, it's a grind. I think what goes into it, that year was really special. Personally, for me, I kind of dedicated that season to my dad, losing him in that. But I felt a lot of guys rally around me and be there for me. And there was one game. There was a senior night. Before the season, my dad had told me he was going to be able to walk for my senior night. This coming off of being paralyzed and going through physical therapy, that was his goal. He never got to reach that goal, but a lot of my teammates knew that goal, and so they lined up on the 34-yard line and just gave a second for him for senior night. And I just felt like when I look back at that season, we always rallied around each other. We were always there for each other. It didn't matter what was going on, or if something's going on back home. Not just for the team captain, but anybody. We always had each other's backs. And when people are willing to give up of themselves and do more than the norm, I think that allows you to trust on the field a little bit more, and it allows you to feel comfortable in those uncomfortable situations.
Well, as I think back through your career, you're a state champ in high school. Then you go on and become an All-American. You were 4-0 against the team up north, I believe.
Yes, sir.
First-round draft choice, Pittsburgh Steelers, all of those different things. You've been on some amazing teams. Now, because you were on them, a lot of them, could be amazing teams because you were an extraordinary leader. But you were captain in high school, college, and then how many years have you been captain of the Steelers?
Oh, man, I think 7 now.
Okay, yeah. I know it's a bunch.
Yeah.
And, of course, for the viewers, he's been – I'm going to look at my notes real quick. Is it 6 or 7 times All-Pro?
4-time All-Pro and then 6 Pro Bowlers.
Pro Bowl,
Bowls.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, and this will be your 14th season coming up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. That's – for being in there in the trenches, 14 years. I remember talking to Allie. We were at one of your fundraisers a couple years ago down there, downtown Pittsburgh. I forget the name of the place.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to her there, and she says, yeah, we're blessed for every year we have, and we don't know how many more years it will be. And, she said, I think I'm going to start seeing if I can sit inside during those December games because, it's getting cold and so forth. And I don't know how much longer this is going to last. Well, that was 2 years ago, and it's still lasting.
She's inside now. I was.
Oh, she's inside now?
She's
okay.
inside.
Okay. All right, so now you get to Ohio State, and you play on 4 good teams, a team that loses in the national championship game, a team that I think all 4 years Big Ten champions.
Yep.
So let's start with 2007. So you're a freshman. Again, testing your memory. Think about who on that team you thought were good team guys that helped build that into a darn good football team.
Oh, man. Well, you can't go any farther without talking about this guy, James Laurinaitis. He was, as much as he was a leader of men, he was a uniter of men. And I always felt like, I met him on my recruiting visit, and I was like, this guy just gets it. He was, I think he was a captain his sophomore, junior, and senior year, right?
I think just junior and senior, but don't quote
junior
me.
and senior.
Yeah, I think
But
just junior and senior.
It's rare to see a junior captain at Ohio State.
Right.
So, I always felt like he was, he was the straw that stirred the drink. Yeah. And, when I look at, the teams I've been on, or just looking at Ohio State, James was responsible for a lot of success, but he was also responsible for keeping guys together. And so that's probably the guy I would circle. You could always go in the D-line room. I had Doug Worthington. There was Vernon Golston. But I always felt like Doug was the guy who, in the trenches, who was all about the group.
And he's doing a great job with youth now, and he's. I get more people telling me, we had Doug Worthington speak to this group and that group, and I think he's even bigger than when he played.
I know, which is crazy.
I know, which is
he looked like a bodybuilder then. So
right. So let's move on to 2008. James was still a senior, so obviously he'd be a natural team guy. So give us a guy off that 08 team. So now you're a sophomore. And was Malcolm still there?
Malcolm was there because Malcolm left with James the following year.
Okay.
Yeah, so Malcolm was there, and Malcolm could run all over the field. He knew everybody's position. He was great at communicating. Between him and James, you couldn't go wrong. The silent leader in the room was Freeman. Marcus didn't really talk because, Marcus had enough kids in college that he had to do all the talking at home. Right. But, Marcus was always a guy that, didn't say a lot, but he would settle the young guys down too. And just, he knew. It's funny to watch him be a coach because I'm like, yeah, he was a coach then. Like, he was so gifted in that response of knowing what you needed to do, but also communicating to guys as well.
Okay, so you have these 4 years. Your last game was the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas.
Yeah.
And is that when you knocked Marcus's teeth out, or was that the Michigan game?
Wait, I knocked Marcus's teeth out?
Oh yeah. In fact, he was just on our podcast and talked about. I think it was Michigan game, and he said you made a big play and you came running off, and he was a GA, and he jumped up to chest bump you, and you knocked his front 2 teeth out.
Oh.
But I think that was Michigan. It wasn't your last game.
He didn't tell me.
Well, he was down in the field looking for his teeth. And he said his wife was crying because of the way he looked after the game, and but she's happy now, so it's all good.
I'm sorry, Free.
So the Sugar Bowl was your last bowl game. The bowl game before that was the Rose Bowl, correct?
Yeah.
And as you think about memories and so forth, and bowl games are funny because you have so long to prepare. It's so different than the world you're in now. Sometimes, we were just with a coach from the Kansas City Chiefs at a banquet the other night, Donnie DeLisio. He's from Youngstown, Ohio. And he said they have 3 games in a 10-day span in December on their schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy in the NFL. But in college, it was just the opposite. We had, 35, 40 days, And so keeping a team together and all that's going into the Rose Bowl or going into the Sugar Bowl, and it was your 3rd and 4th bowl games, okay? What do you think was the key that your first 2 bowl games we lost, right? We lost to LSU in the championship, and we lost to Texas the next year on the last play, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's hard to forget.
Heartbreaking.
Right? And then we beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl and beat Arkansas. But did you see any difference in how we stuck together as a team over that long period?
Yeah. So junior year, we were going up against Oregon, high-flying Oregon offense with Chip Kelly. I remember one thing you guys did was you had 2 different offenses ready to go. So one team would run offense, and then as soon as that team was done, you would sprint another offense out there just to, mimic that. But I just felt like, for whatever reason, that junior team was pretty special. You had Terrell Pryor as your quarterback. You had Brandon Sane and Boom Herron in the backfield. Devere Posey, Dane Sanzenbacher. We were just kind of flowing together for that year. And we had already been through a lot of games that were close and tough that, we thought we were going to be in the national championship. We thought we were close. I know we lost the game up at Wisconsin, and, that was the end of our dream of, making it to the national championship. But there was a lot of ebbs and flows that we were just ready for in that game against Oregon. Because as I recall, we needed big play after big play, and we had to keep sustaining drives. With a team like that, you have to keep their offense out of rhythm to even have success, because once they get going and, you have a 3 and out, it's good night. They're racking up the scoreboard. But I just felt like, even Jake Ballard having that big catch on the sideline, that was – there was plays to be made, and it just felt like we had a consistent group that wasn't going to shy away from it. And then I think back to the Sugar Bowl, a wild game. I got hurt in that game. I tore my elbow and just kept playing, but we needed play after play, and it just felt like, for whatever reason, we were trusting in each other, and we, were able to rally the cause even after, big plays by the other team. And then, my roommate making the biggest play of all, having Solomon Thomas having the interception, pretty fitting.
I don't know if it was a big play, but I remember they blocked our punt, right? And then their first play, didn't you have a sack, fumble, recovery, or something? Because they were down on like our.
Oh, no, they
Yeah.
went for it on fourth down,
Oh, was that what it was?
and I batted the pass,
Okay.
and then we got off somehow. But it was, we
They
had
were
the,
down. They were down there to take the lead.
yeah, and it was, I think it was early in the game, but it was definitely a game-setting type of situation where if they get points here early, it could get out of control.
Yeah.
They went for it on fourth. I blocked the pass. But, man, there was some crazy just catches where, it bounced off of one guy and then we caught it. Just, it was a fun game to win. I'll say that.
Hey teammates, I want to tell you about a project we're working on with Youngstown State University. One of the ways Ellen and I have decided to give back is through the Tressel Institute for Leadership and Teamwork. We've collected a set of successful business and nonprofit leaders to serve as guest servant leaders in partnership with the Sokolov Honors College to teach university students teamwork, leadership, and personal skills. We teach from a foundation built on gratitude, excellence, hope, love, and selflessness. If you're a young person or parent helping to search for a unique college experience, you can learn more at tresselinstitute.ysu.edu or ysu.edu. Links will be provided in the show notes. So now you have to totally shift gears and go and play in these 16-game seasons with, now it's 17, right? A whole different world.
Yeah.
Tell the viewers what it felt like to be drafted by, kind of your hometown team.
Yeah, I'll say this before I get into it. Right after the Sugar Bowl, you had a meeting scheduled for all the upcoming players on the team, and I thought that included all seniors. I was not ready to leave Ohio State,
Right.
And so I remember you coming up to me and like, Cam, you don't have this meeting anymore. But
Broke your heart, right?
It did. It was a harsh reality for me. And I think going into the NFL, it's a big change. It moves a lot faster. You're dealing with the best of the best. And when I got drafted here, I always knew there was a responsibility there. Because I was from here, because I have such respect for this city, but also the history. They've got 6 Super Bowls and they're working on a 7th one. So when you look at just the rich tradition, it's like Ohio State that I cried because I was not only going to my hometown, but I was going to get to wear black and gold, and I was going to wear it proud. I remember you brought back Dick LaBeau all those years ago, and little did I know that was going to be my DC one day. Right. And I was just very thankful, and I'm still very thankful to be in a situation where I can, be in part of 2 great organizations in Ohio State and Pittsburgh.
Well, as I think about the Steelers, and I grew up in Cleveland, so I'm a little bit of a Browns guy, but I love you, so I'm always rooting for you, and I was rooting for Shazier and Will Allen and all of our guys, but the brown and orange, I was a little kid. So, but the one thing that I always really admired about the Steelers started with the Rooney family, and they've been the owners for I don't know how long. Maybe forever, and to see what they've built, they've only had 4 or 5 coaches.
I
mean,
think it's 4. Yeah,
4. Yeah, Chuck Noll, who's from Cleveland.
Yeah,
I had to bring that up. Chuck Noll. Then of course you had Bill Cowher, and you've got Mike Tomlin.
And then I think there was one before Chuck Noll.
One before Chuck Noll.
Yeah,
but what do you think? All these different NFL franchises that have not had that continued, success. What do you think that the organization does differently to build that team?
I think they value consistency. And, some of these teams, it's a new head coach every year.
Yeah.
And I think that's not only hard from a front office standpoint, it's harder for, a team standpoint. It's hard living up to the expectations of what your coach is setting year in and year out when, you could be just setting the way the last coach said it.
Right.
But I think you can't lie. There's been a lot of successful players on these teams that, if you're coaching them, you're riding your tail. You're going to have a chance. So
you're going to have a chance.
And so I think working hand in hand with, having good coaches like Cowher, Tomlin, and, Chuck Noll, but also having guys like Troy Polamalu, Joe Green, Ben Roethlisberger, they might be from the obscure places of Miami, Ohio, or anywhere else, but when they come to Pittsburgh, they're living right.
Well, and I think the people that get drafted by the Steelers feel that sense of responsibility because it's, I've been to your facility many times and it's not the swankiest place.
No.
But it has just got a feeling of, high expectations. And so you've had Coach Tomlin the whole time, correct?
Yeah.
So give us a little view of where you think he does a nice job of, every year your 53 players are probably, 20 of them are different? Mm-hmm. I would think 15 of them at least. How does he build those teams?
Well, I think it starts with really good leadership and challenging your top guys and holding them accountable. Because I think if you have good leadership, everybody can file in and everybody can, catch up that way. But I will say the one thing, when I first got drafted here, and everybody's like, oh, you're a first-round draft pick. You should be happy to be here, But being a first-round draft pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's an extra pressure that you have to embrace and understand that, I might have got drafted for what I've done in the past and what I could be, but I have to go out there and live up to that. And I have to hold myself to a higher standard because I expect that of myself. Because being the first rounder means you're grouped in with guys like Joe Green and Ben Roethlisberger and Troy Polamalu. So when you get here, you kind of have to embrace those moments and embrace that grit of it. And I think Mike T does such a great job of the honesty he shares among each guy. It's never the same because we could all have different goals, but we have a common goal. And he's great of threading the line between personal goals and common goals and making sure the common goal of winning a Super Bowl always outweighs other stuff.
I just read just the other day that might have been John Maxwell or someone said that your team goals have to align with your team's values. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I've always felt about Coach Tomlin, and I've met him a handful of times, and he always came to our pro days, and I've been over to your practice, but he looked to me like it was, yes, winning the Lombardi Trophy is obviously the ultimate team goal, but it wasn't the only thing that he valued in your experience as a Steeler. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I think most of the times he said to us, he says, if we win a Lombardi Trophy, that's not enough. And, that resonates with the group because, the goal is to win a Lombardi Trophy, but it's also to take care of your community and, show people how to do it. The one thing I always respect about Mike T, he's an open book, and so he invites whoever. He gives coaches full access to see how we prepare, how we are in the classrooms, because he wants to be a leader of men, and that's just not leader of men in the locker room, but leader of men all over the country. He also does a really cool thing in the off season. It's called Man Up, where he gets men to come. It's a all men conference that focuses on just fatherhood and providing a way for young fathers, old fathers to share their stories and collectively just be better fathers.
There's no question. From afar, that's what it looks like, is that the Steelers are more than just a football team. Mm-hmm. And we used to always feel that, at Ohio State. Yes, we wanted to win the Big Ten. Yes, win the national championship. But that was just what we do. Mm-hmm. That's not who we were. We were much bigger than that, and we wanted to make more of an impact. And I feel like the Steelers have always embodied that. So through 13 years, getting ready to 14, if you had to pick three guys that you thought were really extraordinary team guys and why, who might you throw out there?
First would be Brett Kiesel. He's been my big brother through this whole thing. I've relied on him so much. I've always called him, he's my Obi-Wan Kenobi. He shows me the way.
Right.
And, he would invite me over his house. He would, spend extra time with me. He would, let me pick his brain. And I was always just receptive to that. When I first got here, I was the young gun coming on to a team that just lost in the Super Bowl. So it was like, I might not start right away, but I need to understand I can absorb their information. I just need to be a sponge. A lot of teams don't have that luxury, but I wanted to, be ready for my moment. And some of it was just learning from guys like him. Another guy, I would say, he gets all the credit already, but I would say Troy Polamalu. That, I can't say enough good things about my teammates, but that dude, he would do things not for the glory of himself, but for the glory of others. Mm-hmm. And the amount of times I would hear about him going to Children's Hospital and spending time with kids and not wanting anybody to know he was there.
He'd have a hard time sneaking in with that hair.
You'd be surprised. He would hide in there. I don't know if he had a hat on and
right.
did a ponytail or whatever, but
right.
He was making sure he wasn't recognized often. And then the last guy, this is probably the biggest glue guy to the Steelers' success, Casey Hampton. He was called Big Snack when he was here, but he was a guy that united guys around him. He brought guys together, whether it was, getting guys together for a barbecue or anything. But it was like nobody messes with Casey because Casey's all about the team and is going to take care of everybody.
Wow. So how many different position coaches have you had since you've been in the NFL?
I've had two.
That's it.
John Mitchell, he actually coached in Cleveland as well.
Yep.
And then now I have Carl Dunbar, and he's coached a lot of places and had a lot of success.
So how many different D coordinators?
I've had 3 defensive coordinators.
Dick LaBeau was your first?
Yep. And then Keith Butler, who was the inside linebackers coach and the outside linebackers coach, who then went on to be the defensive coordinator. And then now we have our coach Austin.
Terrell?
Terrell Austin.
Terrell Austin, yeah.
And he actually played with my dad. So I get to hear stories about my dad again. So it's pretty awesome.
He was from right over there in Sharon, PA.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was at Youngstown State at the time, and I thought I was a young coach. I thought, man, I can go recruit this guy. Well, he ended up playing where? Michigan or somewhere?
He went to Pitt.
Oh, Pitt? Was it Pitt?
Yeah.
We didn't end up with him. I know that. And it's been fun watching his career. So there's 3 guys kind of running a team of its own, even though we have to know as an offense and a defense and special units, we're part of the whole team. Our unit is kind of a team too. Mm-hmm. So how would you compare some of the real good things that each of those guys did to build a defensive unit? That proud Steeler defense, the steel curtain, the whole deal?
Yeah.
What do you think they did?
I think Coach T does a great job of giving his coaches time to coach. Coach T comes in the meeting and, he sets the parameters of, here are the players we're going to highlight. Here's what we need to look at, on a Wednesday. But from that point on, it's like all about your D coordinator, your defensive line coaches. And so, TA does a really good job of explaining our defense and showing why we're changing it and how we're going to change it, and providing different looks so we don't look funny on the sideline when we're changing up series to series. But then I think our D-line coach, we like to think we're the heart of the team. We think we're egotistical in that regard,
Sure.
but he allows us to be ourselves. D linemen, they're loud, they're proud, they like to have fun, but we get after it. And we like to think we're a pack of wolves, and he's teaching us how to hunt. But the thing about it I love that he does is he provides a set of tools for you on the playing field, whether you're doing drills, but then he doesn't handcuff you to one drill. He doesn't handcuff you to one move. He allows you to be yourself. That way you go out there, you're going out guns blazing. You're not just thinking about, I only need to do this right here and there. He wants you to be a football player rather than a robot.
Well, one of my favorite guys in the world is Dick LaBeau. He was the one that we went down, Coach D'Antonio and Coach Haycock and all those guys on our defensive staff went down to Cincinnati when he was the head coach there to study zone blitz. He was kind of like the father of zone blitzes and all that. And he was amazing. Any good Dick LaBeau stories? Because he's a Hall of Famer, just like you're a future Hall of Famer. He just got in 2 or 3 years ago. Because I had always heard he plays the guitar with the guys and has fun. And
well, I'll give you 2 things. The first thing was he would do this anytime we'd lost. He wouldn't harp on what we did wrong sometimes because he would save that for your position coach. But he would just come in and say, he would just talk about his life. He would tell guys, don't drink your problems away. There's no prize at the bottom of that bottle. And so, nobody, he always knew how to relate to the team. He wasn't just going to, beat on a dead horse. But the one thing I always love, and I know it's been talked about a lot, but around Christmas time, he would recite, not read, but recite the night before Christmas. And it became this thing that took off where, whether you were a Pittsburgh Steeler, whether when he went down to Tennessee and was coaching there, guys wanted to hear it. I even heard, even now that he's retired, he's still doing Zoom calls where he recites a night before Christmas. Wow. And, it was something you filmed. You felt the joy from him just from him reciting it, that it felt like a play. And It made you just, this is like, a great thespian where he could just put on a show. And I can't really put into terms what it felt like, but man, he's one of a kind. I would say if you get a chance to have a conversation or a coffee with Mr. Dick LaBeau, take advantage of it because the man is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to football, but he's also just a character in himself that beats to his own drum.
Well, he played 14 years, just like you're getting ready to, and then he coached 38 years in the NFL. I mean, 52 years in the NFL. It's crazy. He's an amazing guy. So, coming off of the conversation that we're more than just a football team, whether we're at Ohio State or Pittsburgh. Obviously, we are so proud of the fact that you're the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, and that didn't just happen overnight. It's a X number of years that you've had a lot of your different things, and I know I was just at your charity golf outing last month, or I guess it was earlier this month. Yeah. At any rate. And just to see how that has grown and how the impact of what you've done with the Heyward House, Craig's Closet, your Kindness Week. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about, and I could see that excites you as much as playing football.
It does.
Which is kind of cool.
Well, I'll preface it with this. I remember my senior year when I had a conversation with you. And you challenged me to think bigger. You talked about how, your dad had a road named after him and you wanted a highway named after you. And I always remember that. And it kind of, my dad had a legacy in Pittsburgh, but I wanted to continue to build on mine, and continue to do something bigger. And in Pittsburgh, we started the Heyward House in 2015. We help underserved kids in both Pittsburgh and Atlanta, where I also grew up. But through Craig's Closet, we provide suits for young men, so they can have suits for job interviews, college interviews, proms. And we're now in over 15 different high schools all over Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And it's not just about giving them a suit and just saying, here you go. We keep up with these kids. We get to see them thrive. We get to see them go on to do great things. We have almost like a mixer or a gala where we get them all together. They get to come in their suits. But then we also provide different entrepreneurs who might be looking for hiring or they just want to pick their brains. And so the kids really do relish those moments. They come in with business cards. These kids are well prepared.
Wow.
And then Cam's Kindness is just, we were trying to find a way not only where we could help, but we could celebrate the community. And so through that, we pick a week during the season where we go to Children's Hospital, and we hang out with the kids there, because I was a kid who was in the hospital a lot as a child. And so I get to give a chance to, brighten someone's day. And then we also find different ways, whether it's building an urban garden in the city or building little libraries. And then we also get together with our Craig's Closet people and see what we can do, how we can help. And it's just been awesome. In the last couple of years, we did this really cool thing with the Caring Place, which is a national grief center on the East Coast that deals with people who've lost a loved one. It's one of the biggest on the East Coast, but I got to share my story. They got to ask me questions. One kid came up to me and asked me and said, "How do you play football even though your dad passed away?" And I didn't know how to answer that right away, but they were just asking for how do you move on after you've loved someone. And I had to just inform them that, it's not just about moving on, but almost building on their legacy and sharing those great moments you've had with them. So it's been unbelievable what the foundation is doing.
That's awesome.
And so, now with winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year, it's grown a lot.
I was going to say the requests have tripled, right?
Yes, they have.
That's right. Well, that's one of the blessings of being with the same organization for 14 years. I mean, a lot of the guys might be trying to get something going after 2 years and they get traded or free agent or, whatever. Your commitment to Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh's commitment to you has allowed this thing to blossom, and it's been amazing. I can't let you go because the viewers always ask this, and we ask them to comment about questions they'd like to, be posed to guests and so forth. Of course, people love to talk about the NIL and the transfer portal when it comes to college football. Yes. And I know you're more than a dozen years removed, but from your vantage point, and now you're working with some kids, you're young rookies and free agents and all that who have gone through a little bit of that. Any reaction from Cameron Heyward's point of view of what you see?
Yeah. One, it's hard for coaches to deal with this now. It's a mess, I'll say the least. But one thing you have to do is be able to adapt. And I think from a player to a coach, you have to be able to adapt in this new environment. But, I know some people run from, hard times and think, I got to transfer because I'm not playing right away.
Right.
And, maybe I might just have been fortunate in that. But I think for some instances, I can grow even though I might not be playing. Yeah. And I can challenge myself to, be better because of it. And so I'm not one to run away from a challenge. I'm more of the guy who runs into the challenge and says, "Hey, how can I solve this?" But NIL has changed the format, and as much as you want to say, "Hey, guys are going to be here for the long haul," you got to capitalize now. Because your team could look completely different in a year, and it's a monster. I'm not going to say it's an easier situation, but it's a monster.
Well, I'm kind of with you, or at least this is the way I feel. I'm glad that the players finally get to make a little something from all this revenue. This was crazy the last 40 or 50 years that we've seen the revenue go through the roof, and the players haven't gotten any. And in fact, it was like a police state in some ways, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad for that change. Getting it under control, we've got to do. But I'm also very much with you on the fact that going through the hard times is what builds you.
Yeah.
And I worry a little bit that it's too easy to say, well, you know what, I'm not playing, and so is ahead of me, and heck, I can remember more players like when you were there. I'll never forget Brian Hartline. You remember Brian, right? Mm-hmm. And so I remember Brian coming into my office and, "Coach, I should be playing. You can't redshirt me." I said, "Well, Brian, no, I think you need to. You missed your senior year. You had a broken leg, but you're going to be really a good player." And, "No, Coach, I'm better than those guys." I said, "Well, Brian, what do you mean you're better than? You're better than Santonio Holmes? You're better than Teddy Ginn? You're better than Anthony Gonzalez? You're better than Brian Robisky?" Yeah, I'm better than all those guys." Now, if there were a transfer portal at the time, Behart would have left. I mean, he just would have.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, no, you're still redshirting. Just keep getting better." But it's hard. And then he became a great receiver, NFL. Now he's the offensive coordinator. I mean, would he have grown like he has if he were allowed to bounce around for every time he thought that, he should be getting the ball more or playing more? And he wasn't a selfish guy. He was just a very confident guy.
Right.
And so I worry that we're not going to have that ability for kids to grow through toughness, through hard times. But I am happy that the players will finally get an opportunity to share in some of the spoils that collegiate football has brought forward. And I guess we'll just have to stay tuned. But I'll end with this, because I know you're on your break and you get about 2 days off all year. And so I've told many of the coaches, and I'll be interested to see if you would agree, that building team and building culture and so forth was always very critical. But in this NIL portal time, it'll probably be more critical because you're going to have to do it quicker.
Yeah.
You're not going to just have all that time, but it's really going to be a little bit more like the NFL in that you had to welcome and build a team with really a new group every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the teams change every year, but then you're going to have to rely on, and it's harder for college because you're only getting a guy for 4 years max most of the time, and you could be replacing, or 3 years if they're really thriving. So replacing that leadership so quickly, you got to have great turnaround, but you got to have leaders who are able to pass on leadership to other positions. I will say that's one thing you got to have in that level.
Yeah. Well, and that's what has kind of been a common denominator. We've had Howie Long on as a guest, and he talked about when he got to the Raiders, those old guys, they just showed the way, and you were going to follow what they did.
Yeah.
And he said, the Raiders were thought of as a little bit of a wild and crazy bunch. He said they had high expectations, Super Bowls and the whole thing. And he said you had to do if you wanted to be a good part of that team. I remember talking to Mr. DeBartolo at the 49ers, and he used to talk about, whether it was Ronnie Lott or Joe Montana or Roger Craig or Jerry Rice, those guys had such high expectations. And that's the key, I found, with when you got Cam Heyward on your team at Ohio State, and he has the work ethic and the character and the values he does, it's easy to get those younger guys to think about it. And that's why it was such a blessing to be a part of your life for 4 years. And I keep bugging you a little bit after that. And I know how special your family is, and it was just a joy to have you on with us today.
Well, Tress, I'll say this. You're being very nice. I was a bit of a knucklehead in college, too. I got plenty of fights. I was definitely more physical than I needed to be there in practice, but I always wanted to just do right by the team.
I love your expectations. And we were only on the field 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
The other 22 hours is when you really had the modeling and the leadership. Practice is one thing, of course.
Yeah.
But it's how someone handles themselves in the rest of the day that's the key. And you did well in both. So appreciate you and love you. And viewers, you just got a chance to spend an hour with the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year, one of my favorite guys in the world. And until next time, don't forget, it's all about the team. Thanks so much.
But Eddie George was one of the great examples and leaders that I was ever around.
Teams are built from within.
I don't want to give up the team.
And there's no fast-forwarding relationship.
I learned that I knew nothing about what I was doing.